Once again, Wrestling Master One is back with this second podcast, and this is going to be entitled, as all my podcasts will be entitled, Hard But It's Fair, Sad But the Truth. And the reason why I came up with that name, because there's a perfect topic that I want to get into. And, this is probably going to upset quite a few people. I don't know. They probably unsubscribe or they won't subscribe after this video, but this video needs to be said to clear up a ton of crap that is on the YWC or whatever they call it now, because I haven't been on here in a while, so I don't know what it's called, the YouTube wrestling community, whatever. And that is professional wrestling fans. And professional wrestling fans have a reputation of being harsh, biased, and just completely crap on everything that they see. But first thing I'm going to say is professional wrestling fans in general complain about everything. There's not one thing that they're going to find that they just completely like, because that's just not how it goes. Professional wrestling fans in general, and I'm not calling out certain people because I haven't been on here in a while, so I don't know what's being said or whatever. But what I'm saying is that every professional wrestling fan is biased, has to complain about something, whether it be WWE, ROH, TNA, PWG, New Japan, it doesn't matter. They're going to complain about it because if they didn't, they just wouldn't be wrestling fans. They complain about everything, and yes, there's stuff to complain about in TNA. There's stuff to complain about in WWE. I love Ring of Honor, but there's still stuff to complain about there. But I'm not going to complain about it because, quite frankly, if I'm not happy with the product, why am I going to watch it? That's the way I see it. If you're not happy with something, why watch it? Don't watch it, but that's not what this is about. This is about professional wrestling fans. Most professional wrestling fans come across as being biased. They like one company. They hate the other. They don't know what they're talking about. They come off as, being Mr. Know-It-All. They have the lowdown on everything. That's true, but it's also not true. One, if you like a company, that doesn't mean you're biased. But if you're acting like that company does not have any faults, then that means you are biased. If you act like TNA is the greatest thing since sliced bread and there's not one thing wrong with it, that's called being biased. If you act like Ring of Honor is the most amazing professional wrestling company that there is, and it might be, but if you're going to act like there is nothing wrong with the company, that's called being biased. If you're going to act like WWE is the greatest of all time, and, it might be because it is the biggest wrestling company of all time. But if you're going to act like it does not have its share of problems, then that is being biased. The problem is a lot of wrestling fans, and, they may not see it, but they kind of are biased to one company and not the other one. Yes, I'm an ROH fan. I've been watching TNA since August 2002. I don't watch it anymore, but I'm not going to completely trash on it. The stuff is garbage, and I will mention that in another video, all the problems that's wrong with TNA, and I kind of did in my last podcast of all the crap that's wrong with TNA, but I'm not going to completely trash the company. I'm just not going to watch it anymore. I can trash the company, believe me when I tell you there's a ton of shit that I can say about the company, and it'll be all true, and you can say I'm biased, but I'm not really biased because I've been watching TNA since August of 2002, and I've been a diehard fan up until this past year because the product is just lame. But we're getting back to professional wrestling fans. As I was saying, professional wrestling fans come off as being biased, hypocrites, and they come off as just completely bashing everything. And it's even been said on other talk shows, such as Between the Ropes and Pro Wrestling Report, that professional wrestling fans have to complain about something. If they don't complain about anything, then there's something wrong with the business. It's a natural fact that they have to complain about it. Let's say they complain about Del Rio, saying that Del Rio is not ready. Well, of course, they're obviously going to say that. Yes, he came in, late 2010. He won the Rumble, and he got a shot at WrestleMania. A lot of people are going to complain about that. If they didn't, well, then there would be something wrong with wrestling. They're going to complain about WrestleMania being the worst WrestleMania ever, when honestly it was not, because when you think about it, there have been, I believe, 4 worse WrestleManias than WrestleMania 27. 11 was worse. 13 was worse. 9 was worse. And in my opinion, 21 was worse. The only thing that saved that show was Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. But still, that was worse than WrestleMania 27. A lot of people are going to say that WrestleMania 27 did not have any good matches besides Triple H and The Undertaker, but yet CM Punk and Randy Orton was good. A lot of people said it wasn't. They were like, it's too slow. But when you think about it, the match had psychology. You're forgetting that. CM Punk worked on Orton's leg throughout, he attacked his leg the week before, 2 weeks before, and in the matchup, he worked on it. That is great ring psychology. The match was good. Yes, it was not the match that you wanted, the fast-paced match that it should have been, that normally CM Punk's matches are, but the match told great psychology. It was very shamed. Yes, it was not as good as Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13, but it kind of had the same psychology that match had in it. And a lot of people look down on that match and don't necessarily think it was good, when honestly it really was good because it had great ring psychology. You want the fast-paced matchup, well, I'm sorry, but that's not what that match was. Don't just badmouth that match because it was not fast-paced like you wanted it, and it wasn't as good as you wanted it, but it told great ring psychology, and it was a good matchup, regardless of what some people might think. The match was good, but that's wrestling fans again. You have to not bash something, but you have to be negative against something because it didn't go the way you wanted it, or it didn't go the way that you necessarily thought it should have gone. Wrestling fans in general, they have to, they have to complain about something. They have to brag about other things. It's just the way it is. You can't change it. Some people will say, oh, I didn't have a problem with that, or, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't have a problem with that, but it was garbage, It was okay, but it wasn't as great as it could have been. Things are not going to always go the way you want them to. It's just life. You're going to have to deal with it, and it's professional wrestling. You're going to have to deal with it. Yes, a lot of us do not like the fact that John Cena gets pushed as Superman. But guess what? He's bringing that company money, so they're going to keep on pushing him until they find somebody else who's going to make more money for them. So until then, John Cena is going to keep being the top guy and getting pushed like Superman. A lot of us don't like it. I don't like it. But it is what it is. It's the WWE. Just like a lot of people say, WrestleMania didn't have that much wrestling on it. Wasn't really that many great matches. Raw only had 25 minutes of wrestling. SmackDown only had 50 minutes of wrestling. TNA Impact only had 30 minutes of wrestling. We're going to talk about TNA later with the wrestling, but you talk about WWE not having that much wrestling. But let's think about it. Did you really honestly tune into WWE to watch wrestling? If you did, well, then you're crazy because honestly, the WWE does not really showcase wrestling all that much. So if you tune into WWE looking for a great wrestling match every Monday night, then there's something wrong with you because it's the WWE, you know how they work, so why would you be expecting that when that's not what they put out? TNA, occasionally you'll see a good match on Impact every once in a while, but let's face it, they're trying to become more entertainment. I believe now the slogan when TNA comes on, instead of TNA Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, it says Total Nonstop Entertainment. So they believe they're kind of going in that route. The WWE went, trying to get rid of the wrestling. But another thing for wrestling fans to complain about, and yes, that is something to complain about, the WWE getting rid of wrestling. A lot of people are complaining about it, saying, oh, how can they do that? How can they get rid of the wrestling? That's what got them here. That's what brought them to the dance. But guess what? At the end of the day, what are they still doing in the ring? They're wrestling, regardless of whether or not they take the World Wrestling Entertainment, the wrestling out of World Wrestling Entertainment. It doesn't matter. They're still in the ring wrestling. Just because they take it out does not mean they're going to get rid of wrestling completely. Yes, it's a disgrace to the business, but guess what? At the end of the day, they could take the wrestling out of WWE, and what are they still going to show you on house shows and Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-views? Wrestling. So even though they've taken that out, you're still seeing wrestling. It doesn't matter that the name is being taken out of the name WWE, because at the end of the day, it's still wrestling. It may not be as much wrestling as you want, it may not be a good wrestling that you want, but it's still wrestling regardless. And a lot of us have to think about that. We're complaining about the WWE getting rid of the wrestling, but they're still wrestling in the ring. So it doesn't matter that they got rid of it because it's still wrestling. They might go out on a limb and say, oh, we're not a wrestling company, but guess what? What's going on in the ring is still professional wrestling, and just deal with it, But that's goes back to what I was saying. Wrestling fans complain about everything. It's not normal if they don't. It's just a fact of being a professional wrestling fan. You complain about stuff because it's not the way you want it. It doesn't go the way you thought it should. And because it's just garbage, you know. I mean, if something is bad, you should, I'm not going to necessarily say bash it, but you should be vocal about your dislikes about it. You should not bash it, but you should be vocal about it. And I think that's what some fans kind of come off as. They come off as being bashing, and some fans feel that the person who's talking bad about the company that they like is bashing, but it's not really bashing. It's voicing your opinions on what you dislike about the product. There's a lot of things that I would love to voice about TNA that I'm just completely disgusted with that promotion. A promotion that I had so much hope in, but now I've just completely lost it with what they've been doing this year. And the whole Jeff Hardy situation, that has something to do with it, but among other things. But I'm not going to voice those because then people would see me as bashing TNA when I'm voicing my opinion on what I dislike about the product. But this was pretty much my video on wrestling fans in general. Leave a response, a comment as to what you thought of my videos. I'll be coming with another podcast later. This is the podcast for this. Just leave a comment, a video response as to what you thought about it. Look forward to hearing all your other comments. And if this gets great responses, great reviews, I'll probably do another pro wrestling fan video, podcast. Just hit the subscribe if you like it. Send me a message, whatever you want. I'll probably do a Q&A later, and at some point, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, I plan on having a special guest from the wrestling business on this podcast. Just hope and pray that happens. Hopefully, I'm not sure which one, but if everything goes well, it'll be somebody you guys do know. Not from the WWE, because I can't pull that off, but it'll be somebody who's worked for TNA and worked for Ring of Honor. And hopefully that'll go off well, and hopefully you'll see them hear them on the podcast. Send in your questions. If it does happen, I'll tell you guys to send in your questions that I'll ask, and hopefully it'll all go off well. Thanks again. It's hard but it's fair, sad but the truth. It's Wrestling Master 1. I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Drop back down! The whole fucking town! Drop back down! The whole fucking town! Burn of Dr. Nato! Drop back down! The whole fucking town! Drop back down! The whole fucking town! I said I'm not stuck your brain! Stuck your dog brain! You can find me stuck your brain! Stuck your dog